Very excited to have our next guest on. We have Kim John Payne, who is Simplicity Parenting Director, author. The list of what it is that you do is quite amazing. We actually read an article about you and what you're doing earlier this week in the Ottawa Citizen, and it got our conversation going. Yeah. And so now that I have you here in the chair, the first question I want to ask you is how do you define simplicity parenting?
Well, you know, the definition of it is more about preparing kids for the future rather than it is about taking kids back into the past. A lot of folk think simplicity and balancing is taking kids back. You know, we live in an increasingly deconstructed world. Jobs aren't for life anymore, and now kids need to be creative and adaptable, innovative, and we get that when we give kids the space for childhood. They will be creative, innovative, and adaptable because that's the kind of culture they're moving into. So simplicity parenting, I guess, and balancing kids' lives is about preparing kids for the future as much as anything.
When we looked at some of the suggestions, a lot of it was about decluttering or taking the abundance of products and things and activities and simplifying it and decluttering their lives.
Yeah, a lot of that for me has more of a sort of a neuroscience background, really. When you declutter books, toys, clothes, and you simplify, it feels good, it looks good, but what happens in the brain is that the more cooperative centers of the brain start to move in. You move out of fight or flight, or amygdala hijack that ancient reptilian brain, and when you have less in your home, the kids, there's less in their view and what they see, and getting out the house in the morning becomes easier, dressing them becomes easier. It's literally because there's a different part of their brain actually that's dominating their lives at the time.
You talk about certain parts of the brain, and you talk about, you know, as your child psychologist as well coming in, that you would see people that thought that their kids were bad, and you said, I've never actually seen a bad kid. Yeah. It's more the factors that are leading up to their behavior.
Yeah, you know, I often say I've never met a disobedient kid, and you think I would, right? But I've only ever met disoriented kids and overwhelmed kids. I really just don't believe in disobedience. What's happening is these kids are overwhelmed with too much stuff, too young, too sexy, too much. And what they're doing is pushing back. I think they're just trying to hold their shape because they're getting bent out of shape. And what a lot of parents find is when they simplify and balance and slow down their lives, a ton of that disobedience, those discipline problems start to ease up.
We're also in a society of screen time, computers, phones. What is your view on everything that is in front of them at this stage?
One of the things about screen time is just the sheer amount of time kids spend on screens. When they're doing that, they're not playing, they're not cooperating, they're not figuring stuff out socially, and that's one problem I have with it. The other problem is they're not actually relating to mum and dad. And the third problem that I have with screens is that someone else has created what they're watching. They haven't created it themselves. And again, our kids are moving into a world where they're going to need to be really creative and adaptable. Jobs aren't for life anymore. And so I'm a really big fan of simplifying and balancing and cutting back on screens in general, not just TV, but all screens.
There are a ton of questions that I want to ask, and I think that's what's wonderful about the seminars that you're doing. So what do people get when they come and experience a lecture with you?
One of the things with these lectures and workshops that I'm told with parents is that they find a sort of a stepping stone themselves. This is not about becoming radical. It's not about needing to turn your life upside down. Coming to the lectures and workshops, I'm told, gives them a foothold on something that feels sensible and doable in their own family. So, you know, they get home, and if they've got a 13-year-old daughter like I have, she doesn't roll her eyes and thinks, oh, she'll get over it, she's been to another parenting workshop, you know. It's like, you know, no, it's more just sensible, doable ideas, and that's really great to hear.
I think it's for every parent to make a decision as to where they can see them making these slight changes or where they want to be able to do that. SimplicityPairing.com has a ton of information on there in terms of a lot of the work that Kim John Payne has been doing. And of course, the event is happening tonight, Southminster United Church at 7:30. Hopefully there's some spots still available. People can get in and be able to enjoy the lecture. It was a pleasure to meet you. From my end, from Northampton, Massachusetts. Next time he comes in, he's bringing me a burrito.
Yeah, I promise.
Yes.